Okay, Mark meets Simon Burridge, CEO at Virgin Games. Hi Simon.
Hi.
Can you give us a very quick summary of your career to date?
Well, I spent most of it in advertising. I was at a city agency called G. Rogerson for 6 years, and then I went to JWT.
What year was this roughly?
This was, so from about 1980 to 1986 I was at G. Rogerson. Then I went to J. Walter Thompson as a director from 86, and then left after having done Richard Branson's first lottery bid to go to be where I was director at AMV for 2 years. Then went back to JWT till 2000 when I left to become chief executive of the People's Lottery. And then when that went, and you know when you've been quangoed, I was chairman of HHCL and Partners for a couple of years. When that got sold to WPP, I went back to work for Richard doing various projects, and one of them was looking at an online gaming business, which I set up in 2004 and have been running ever since.
Cool, okay. And did you go to university?
Yes, I went to, I read history at Oxford a long, long time ago.
And then what made you get into advertising?
What made me get into advertising? Actually, I think it was because someone told me that it was impossible to get into advertising, and I wasn't that keen to get a job, so I thought this would be perfect for squaring my family off on the one side, that I'd have chosen a career and was dead keen. And on the other hand, I didn't no obligation to actually turn up and do any work. But that came to an end in fact, I joined in the media department at a now defunct agency called Ayer Barker Hegeman. I had no idea about what was going on at all, and I'm only slightly wiser now, I guess.
And so how comes you decided to make the move client side? I guess from all of those years working agency side in advertising, you've been here, what, 9 years now?
Yeah, about 8 years, yeah.
So what made you come here?
Well, it wasn't really a sort of conscious decision. I mean, when I was having done Richard's first bid, when I was a managing partner at JWT, and he came and asked me to actually run his second bid as the People's Lottery, against Camelot, and so I threw myself into that, and at one point we were told that we'd won, and so at that stage I left to set up the People's Lottery, but of course that then didn't happen. And when I left HHCL, I was just working for Richard Branson, and he asked me to set up Virgin Games. So it was because, in fact, quite a lot of my career has been dictated by a horse, my famous horse my family owned called Desert Orchid.
Okay. Nice.
And everyone's always assumed that I was incredibly keen on gambling. So JWT, I was in the Ladbrokes account, and when the lottery came out, it had my name written all over it. And then when Richard wanted to set up a gaming business, he came to me, and it was all about. I've never actually told anyone before. I don't think I never really liked gambling, but I just like betting on horses that jump. So there is a sort of serendipity nature about how one's career, or say about how my career has unfurled or unravelled, or something.
What's the best bit of career advice you've been given?
The best bit of career advice I've been given. Well, the most interesting one, which is that when you start at a new job, you immediately, as conspicuously possible, take a day off, because then everyone will assume you're majorly important, that you don't have to sort of sneak out the back door. On a sort of more sensible notion, I think just do something that you feel that you enjoy, because you're never really going to get anywhere without putting in a lot of hours, and if you're putting in a lot of hours in something you don't like, then it's that much more difficult.
And what's the most embarrassing thing to have happened to you in your career so far?
Most embarrassing thing? The most embarrassing thing was when I was just at JWT, and it had just been taken over by WPP, and I was given the job of doing the first chairman's statement for WPP, and there was a endless toing and froing on the copy because it was a complicated business, and I asked my very slowly secretary to send a covering letter with the version of the copy number 24 or whatever it was, and said, "Dear Martin, look forward to hearing your comments shortly." and she left out the L. And in those days you had a fax room, so it wasn't immediately obvious what had happened till later, and I remember coming back and looking at it on my desk and thinking, no, how embarrassing.
Oh, that's quite a good story. How would you describe the industry today in 3 words?
Which industry? The advertising industry.
Your industry.
Our industry. In 3 words, dynamic, growing, and becoming, well, and more interesting, actually.
And have you played any of the Virgin games?
Oh, I've played them all, yeah.
Have you? And what's your favourite?
What's my favourite? Well, I prefer the sort of roulette and blackjack to...
Not being a gambler.
Not being a gambler. And of the slots games, I don't know, Da Vinci Diamonds will probably be in there. There's a great one from Ash Gaming about a sort of magic circus, I forgot what it's called. Where you get bearded women and all sorts of things come leaping out at you in bonus rounds, which is good. And, you know, we just launched our games on mobile, and that's much more, you know, that's a fantastic development.
On an application?
So we can play, it comes through all into our platform, and so it's all done on the web, but it's...
so it's a mobile version of the website?
Yeah.
Okay.
And that's just transforming our business. I mean, I get a third of our registrations and something like about a quarter of our revenues. And we launched it a few months ago, so it's... You know, that just makes so much sense, because, you know, instead of you having to go to the media, you know, the media now comes to you. It's wherever you are, whatever you're doing, whatever mood you're in. There's a device to deal with it. What's
the best thing about working for Virgin, in your opinion?
The best thing about working for Virgin, well, I've been on some pretty amazing holidays.
Necker Island?
I've been to Necker Island a lot. And Uluwatu in South Africa. And
do you have to pay when you stay on Necker Island?
Do you what?
Do you have to pay?
Oh, no. I've been Richard's been kind enough to invite me and my family a number of times.
And have you shared the island with anyone famous?
Anyone famous? With Penelope Cruz one time.
Just casually throw that one in there, Penelope Cruz.
Elizabeth Hurley was there one time.
Wow.
Peter Gabriel was in South Africa with us. So, a few.
Amazing. Okay. Apart from the benefits, the kind of holiday benefits, what else is kind of good about working with Virgin?
It's, you know, I mean, the great thing I think about the Virgin brand, it's an attitude. You know, it doesn't really matter whether it's you know, gyms or aeroplanes or gaming. It's just how you go around really trying to give your customer a better experience, and you know, and that creates a lot of energy, which is quite fun. Although I think the nicest thing about working at Virgin Games is there's no correlation between me being at the office and it making money, because it's all done late at night and at weekends. So there's none of that sense if I don't turn up at the office, everything's going to fall apart.
Yeah. Have you always had that kind of sense of feeling when you've worked agency side before?
Well, you've really got to be there to make things happen, or you've got to be on a plane going somewhere to make things happen, or it's and you know, and a lot of what we do, by definition of the business we're in, can be done remotely. So it creates a much more relaxed sort of frame of mind, and you know, because a lot of our head of technical lives in Paris, and so you know, he does a lot of it all remotely, and I just think that's just more interesting, because I think the balance between work and play is really important, and a lot of industries get so sort of focused that sort of goes out the window. And it's nice that you can do what you need to do where you can do it best, really.
In terms of running an advertising agency and running a business like Virgin Games, what would you say the main differences are? Obviously, apart from the fact you don't necessarily need to be here for it to run smoothly.
Well, I mean, I think Jeremy Bullmore said, you know, running an advertising agency is basically the management of chaos. You know, you have a product and you don't know what it looks like, how much it costs, how long it takes to make, etc., etc., etc. So there is a lot more vagaries around running running a business, where at Virgin Games we know exactly what the product is, and it's just simply about acquiring enough customers and looking after them well enough so they stay long enough to make them profitable. So it's really, it's a much more prescriptive business, and one of the charms of being in advertising is you get to look out under a lot of bonnets, in terms of different sectors, different industries, and also because you never really know what's going to happen. And I find that strangely compelling.
What advice would you give to people who are maybe in the position you were 9 years ago, when you, I guess, were looking at a different kind of career path, and people have X amount of years experience working in advertising? What would you say the kind of pros and cons are of change in direction?
It's very different. I mean, you feel quite differently about advertising on different sides of the fence, which is... but the thing that's really different about being on the client side is... Well, I don't mean this disrespectful to the agencies, but you're spending your own money. And if we have £500,000 campaign and it doesn't pay back, there isn't another £500,000. It's not just a question of getting another account. So that instills a lot more sort of rigour, I guess.
Because of that, does return on investment become much more important?
It has to become more important, because I mean, if you think advertising is a nice game to play, if you don't get it right, then you've got something to play with next time. So it's really important that it works, and so I found myself getting much more involved in media than I ever did when I was sort of running accounts. I mean, then you could take it just a sort of broad, you knew it was on television, or but you didn't really have to get into the sort of the minutiae of it. But I think that the second most difficult thing is the fact that you only have one client, which is you. It was quite refreshing to be looking after, Kraft cheese on them one day, Ladbrokes the next, and P&O Ferries the next, or whatever it was. Now it's gaming, from the moment you get in to the moment you leave. And there's been a lot of exciting development, and we've built our own platform which can do things other platforms. So it's been quite a journey. But the real battle we face is, because this is essentially a marketing operation, when everything's laid to rest, is trying to find some differentiation, trying to find something that distinguishes you from all the rest of the competition. You have much more money than you do.
So how did you do that when you first launched Virgin Games 9 years ago?
Well, we did. We offered. It all seems a bit pony now, but in those days we offered free games. We introduced V Points, which was an incredibly generous loyalty scheme. Instead of doing what everyone else did, everyone else sponsored, when there was a poker tournament in Vegas, they bought them lots of seats and stuff. At that time, Virgin was the only direct flight from the UK to Vegas, so we took over the plane. There's even sponsored the sick bags, which said we don't want you to chuck in your hands. So it was sort of just trying to, in terms of personality, be different. We've got fantastic customer service who we really take very, very seriously, to be over 24/7. Things like that to try and, so people can have a pleasant experience as possible.
Okay. What's your favourite advertising campaign of all time?
Of all time? Wow, that's a difficult question. I love those AMV Guinness ads of the, whenever it was, 90s. What else did...
Has advertising changed?
I think it was. I think I love that one. It was an HHCL ad. It was for where the chap's in the boxing ring and he storms off and it's all done in one continuous take.
Was that something you were responsible for?
No, it wasn't. Nothing to do with me. And I used to like some of the HHCL, the slaggable snacks type. Some of those were good fun. But no, there's just such a sort of, there's almost too many to pick out one favourite one.
And do you see advertising differently now that you're out of advertising?
I don't think I see it differently. I see less of it, certainly. I live miles away and just outside Cirencester, so I spend a lot of work on a train. So I'm exposed to much less than I used to be. No, I like it. I mean, a really good piece of communication. I still find very exciting.
If you weren't in this industry, what do you think you'd be doing?
Hopefully retired. I don't know. I'd like to do something which didn't necessarily involve me commuting. I don't know what that would be. But
how long is your commute?
It's about 2 hours each way.
Wow.
So it's quite grueling, and it's quite bad for your self-respect. You find out sort of conversation being populated with commuter stories, which you know before you've started are inherently dull. I don't know. I'd like to write, actually. I mean, I write quite a lot of articles for various magazines and stuff, so I enjoy writing. So, you know, that would be what I'd like to do.
And what are your interests outside of work?
I have 3 daughters. I don't have time for a huge amount of interest outside of that. I like national hunt horse racing. I like travelling. I read voraciously, and chilling out, really, doing nothing.
Okay, let's move on to a quick fire round.
Yeah.
An Olympic gold medal or an Oscar?
Which will I like? Oh Christ! I'd go for the Olympic gold medal.
Can line or D&AD pencil?
D&AD pencil.
The brightest person you've ever worked with?
Ross Slight.
The most creative person you've ever worked with?
Damon Collins.
And the best looking person you've ever worked with?
Oh Christ, who would that be? Best looking, all those gorgeous girls. There was a very pretty girl called Monica Middleton once, I remember. Natasha Fairweather. I mean, there are lots of them.
Creatives or suits?
Creatives.
Money or happiness?
Happiness.
Apple or Android?
Apple.
Degree or no degree?
Degree.
Retained work or pitch work?
Pitch work.
Web or mobile?
Mobile.
Outsourced production or on-site production?
Outsourced production.
Don Draper or Roger Sterling?
Good question. Don Draper.
And lastly, twist or stick?
Twist.
Thank you very much.